Good morning and welcome to Chris & Co, the show looking at what affects business in Kent. With me, Chris Price. Joining me today are Louise Simpson-Brown, a financial planner with accountancy and financial advice firm Kreston Reeves, and John Brice, a pub owner, journalist and organiser of the Medway Beer Festival. They'll be discussing topics like the impact of workplace pensions on businesses, the scheme which means by law every employer, no matter how big or small, has to make sure all staff over the age of 22 are saving for their future. First today though, we're talking about the changing face of the British High Street. The recent administration of BHS means another big name could be about to leave empty shops in town centres across the county. Our reporter Louisa Britton went to Gravesend to find out how its high street is faring.
Stores in high streets like this one in Gravesend are finding it increasingly hard to compete with discount stores and online shopping. This has forced many businesses to close, and increasingly we are seeing that the makeup of the high street is changing.
It used to be full of people, a lot of cheap deals, a lot of, atmosphere. Nowadays, look at it. There's nothing going on. It's just empty. I think it's a crying shame. I think it's criminal, to be honest with you. Online is not for me. I like to be a touchy-feely kind of person. I like to go and try something on.
I mean, there's only like a few big shops now, and there used to be loads. It's just all gone. It's just empty. It's just like a ghost town, isn't it?
BHS's administration last month might mean another big name is set to leave town centres across the country. And a collapse would mean a blow to town centres like Gravesend, which has already suffered from the closure of Marks & Spencer in 2014. But things might be looking up. Bargain retailer B&M is now set to move into the former Marks & Spencer building. And on Gravesend's High Street, some small businesses are hopeful about the future.
When I first moved in, there were quite a few closed shops, to be honest with you. But particularly within the last 6 months, you can see such a bit of a buzz and almost a better atmosphere within the high street as well. And we've noticed that through the tea room as well, as we've got busier. We've seen a few of the other empty shops down the high street opening up, which is great. It's really kind of starting to thrive a lot more than it used to be.
There's been a lot of talk about how the high street's kind of closing down. Is that something that you've experienced?
No, really. I mean, as the sun's coming out, it's been really good and really popular, especially with the younger people and that. It's been really, really busy, and we've doubled our take-ins, yeah, so it's really good.
This is Louisa Britton for KMTV in Gravesend.
So John, you've lived in Medway for 40 years. You've seen the high street change over a long period there. Are high streets what they used to be?
No, they're not what they used to be, and it shouldn't really surprise us, because with all the social changes that are happening, evolution takes its course anyway. For example, people work longer than they did before in terms of commuting to London maybe, and so there's less time to go into the high street. We also have the internet, so people are buying a lot more on the internet, and so the variety of shops are changing. And so, yes, things have changed dramatically. The number of shops, the style of shops. And I think now we buy a lot of what we'd call very cheap things from places like the pound shop that we can throw away instantly. But we take a lot more care over the more expensive things like household goods and clothes. So you can see those changes in the high street as well.
Louise, as a shopper, how much do you think that high streets rely on big retailers like BHS, who've, sadly slipped, look like they could be in trouble and slipping away?
Yeah, to be absolutely honest with you, all high streets need the big shops. I think, the retail space, as I'm led to believe, is very, very expensive, and you need those sort of big national companies, I would say, to be in there to be able to really support the smaller shops. I think you couldn't have a high street that's just made up of smaller shops. You need a good mixture of the two, I would say.
Sure. These are hard times for high streets, clearly. I mean, last week, BDO, the accountant, they said high streets have recorded their worst performance since the financial crisis, with year-on sales dropping 6.1% in April. John, are the days of the high street numbers, do you think?
No, they'll always be there. I mean, we also have to take into account the big superstores, that they are part of what the high street used to be. So it's the changing face again. Whereas you go to the high street to buy just about everything, You now choose whether you go on the internet, whether you go to the out-of-town store, or whether you go to the corner store. Look at all the corner stores everywhere now. You find a corner store that sells just about everything. So it's changing. Everything is changing. The high street will still be there, but it'll be different.
Has online shopping taken over? How much of that role has online shopping taken over, though?
Well, statistically, it's quite a large figure. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it is big. But I think that's changing now. What's happening is that shoppers are going online to do their research. So they go online, they look for something, and they say, it's such a price there, it's cheaper there. Maybe I'll go to both of those shops and see if the more expensive one is a better quality. So it's changing in a research way, but online shopping will always continue while people are busy and they can get things delivered to the door rather than go out and look for them.
What do high streets need to do you think, to be able to thrive? I mean, you work in the pub sector. How much of a role do pubs, for example, have a part to play in making sure that high streets can continue to thrive and live on?
That's one of the places that pubs will continue to thrive. The big town centre pubs will continue, and that's why you've got companies like Wetherspoons investing so much money. It's the smaller pubs, the backstreet pubs in the towns, that are declining, and that's again another social change. It's because you used to go to a pub in the past to join the darts team, the quiz team, the football team, the angling society, the golf society. Those things are changing. People are doing different things with their sports now. And instead of going to the pub to meet someone, you can go online and chat to someone. And so life is just different. The pubs are still a vital part of the community. They raise huge amounts for charity that some people have no idea about, but pubs will always be vital. There won't be so many. The bigger ones will survive, and the good ones and the country pubs where you go for a meal, they'll always survive too. But it's changing all the time.
Another question, perhaps a little bit, is safety of high streets. I don't know if people feel happy walking around. I don't know, Louise, do you feel confident going to the high street?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm very Canterbury based, and I actually think our high street is very, very safe. You know, I've gone out many a time in the evening, obviously during the daytime, and I can honestly say I actually think the instances of actually seeing fights, etc., like you used to, have actually kind of diminished now. I think it's so, if you're talking about pubs in particular, it's so expensive to go out that actually that sort of trouble, I don't see anywhere near as much of it anymore. I don't think. I feel safer actually, I would say now.
John, as part of the Medway Safer Partnership, this is a big thing for you?
Well, it is. We carry out research from time to time, and recent research has shown that people want to go out in a safe environment. They want to make sure that when they go out, their handbag is not going to be raided, and that they're not going to find people causing social disorder in the streets outside. So these are very important factors, and that's why something like the Safer Medway Partnership and the partnerships throughout Kent, they're just about everywhere, do such a good job in trying to stop shoplifting, and also trying to make people act in a much better way.
Brilliant. Guys, thanks very much for your thoughts on that. Moving on now, we turn to workplace pensions, the scheme which has many small business owners poring over paperwork across the county. So-called auto-enrolment has now come into force across the majority of larger businesses in Kent. It ensures anyone aged between 22 and the state pension age is putting aside a percentage of their pay, so long as they're earning at least £10,000 a year. Now it's the turn of small firms to go through the compliance process, even if they employ just one person. Our reporter Duarte Diaz went to Rochester High Street to speak to Godfrey George, owner of the town's Baggins bookshop, who's preparing to go through the process himself.
I'm against the workplace pensions, really. Yeah. I mean, and the way it's set up, it's just so complicated. Well, it's another burden, to small businesses, definitely, which will result in perhaps not so many people being taken on, because of the extra costs imposed by the government. And having been through a recession quite recently, a lot of small businesses just don't really have the sort of resources really to carry on with this. I mean, you've got that lumped together with the living wage. Small businesses will perhaps think twice about taking someone on.
So, Louise, How much of a headache are workplace pensions for small businesses then?
Quite a large one, I think it would be fair to say. There is so much information, and I just feel that actually, in many respects, having a lot of information out there is good, but I have to say, from a small employer, or even really the large employer's point of view, they're obviously slightly better off because they usually have a whole department to deal with it. But a smaller employer, as we've just seen in that clip, you know, they go on the internet, they're trying to find out how on earth do you start even remotely, you know, what do I need to do to start a workplace pension for my employees? And there is just so much information out there, it is very, very difficult to know where to start. How
much does it cost firms? I mean, many are dealing with fines for non-compliance, up to 10,000 if you're a huge employer, £50 a day it goes up if you employ up to 30 people. I mean, is this a cost that firms are able to undertake? Well, to be fair on the pensions regulator, actually, from the instances that we've had, actually, and I've helped or my firm sort of helped clients with, they're not there to sort of instantly fine like you'd expect, there'd be a great cash cow for them. They're not. They are genuinely trying to help the small business get compliant, get their scheme in place, make sure the employees' contributions are made in the right timeframes, etc. And it's only if you really get, somebody who's many months down the line who hasn't put one in place that they actually turn around and say, right, now's the time that you get a fine, basically. So it's more supportive than it is an instant, let's just jump in and, make some money, basically. But do firms have the time to get through this? Because setting up a pension scheme, if you're a small business, that's a heck of an undertaking. Do firms have the time for that? I don't think so. In a lot of cases, I mean, they have to make time. It is a legal, it's legislation that is is legal. They have to absolutely do it. There is no, I'll bury my head in the sand, I won't do it, or a pension scheme will miraculously just start, without me doing anything. You have to be organised. You have to start a good couple of months in advance. There are choices that have to be made by the business owner, and they have to do it, basically. And like I say, burying the head in the sand about it is not a good ploy, in my opinion. You've got to start early, basically. John, do you think businesses are being too negative about this? I mean, at the end of the day, workplace pensions, they are there for staff, to encourage people to save for the future. Is this something that businesses are right to be complaining about the effort they have to go to sort this out?
I think it's much bigger than that. You're talking about the big layers of red tape that keep emerging on small businesses. We've spoken about the fact that the living wage had to go up. And all you get, when I was running my 2 pubs, I was spending so much time in the office dealing with paperwork and not behind the bar talking to the customers. And this is the real problem with all small businesses. You've got to remember that politicians only have one role in life, and that's to make laws. And the laws they impose on us mean that we have to do something about it. And it's that red tape that stops the wheels of industry working. It stops us from doing the things we ought to be doing.
Louise, there are some people rubbing their hands together though at this regulation that John's talking about. I mean, for the accountancy industry, I guess particularly, that's a heck of a lot of work that you guys are picking up. Yeah, we are. I mean, the vast people who usually come to me and say, most of my clients, I have no idea where to start, help me. And we offer a service where we do literally just do everything for them, and they are willing to pay, obviously, a premium price for us to do that, basically. That's not to say a smaller employer can't do it themselves. To be fair, we've got many where I will go out and I'll sort of offer a cost for them, and they will come back to me and say, okay, no, I'll go and do it myself. And then they usually end up getting about halfway through the process and then getting a bit stuck, basically. It's just not that easy. There's lots and lots of choice out there, which, one hand is a good thing and lots of information, great. But on the other hand, trying to drill that down to what you as an individual business needs is very, very difficult. Very quickly, before we have to say goodbye, the deadline for this is 2018 for all businesses to be signed up. Are we going to hit that deadline, do you think? Absolutely. You think? Absolutely. Do you feel like firms are able to take this on, John?
Well, they're struggling, but I think when it's legislation, you have to perform.
You have to do it, yeah.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, guys, thanks very much for your input today. Very, very much appreciated for coming on to the show. That's it for the latest edition of Kreston Co, our show looking at the issues affecting business in Kent. You can keep up to date with all the county's latest business news at kentbusiness.co.uk, and you can also follow us on Twitter at KentBusiness, or join our pages on Facebook and LinkedIn. So from John Brice from Medway Safer and Medway Partnership, and from Louise Simpson-Brown from Kreston Reeves, we say thanks very much. Thanks very much for watching. Have a very good day. Goodbye.